This is the story that should make us hang our heads in shame. As a nation that betrays its war heroes, are heroes who make the supreme sacrifice for us every single day. This is the story of Capt.Saurabh Singh Kalia, a Kargil war hero who laid down his life defending our borders, and now his father is reduced to go from door to door, which he has been over the last 13 years, asking for justice for his martyr son. This time, he's knocking on the doors of the Supreme Court of the country. The Indian government has clearly overlooked its brave heart and chosen to let Pakistan off the hook for the sake of better relations with its terrorist neighbor. Captain Kalia's father, retired scientist Dr. N.K. Kalia, has been battling for justice for his son for 13 years non-stop now, and after getting no meaningful help, assistance or response from the government, has now knocked the doors of the apex court seeking directions to the government to take up his son's case with the government of Pakistan as well as the International Court of Justice. He wants India to exert pressure on Pakistan and expose the criminal, barbaric torture inflicted on his young son while he was a prisoner of war in Pakistan during captivity. In his petition to the Supreme Court, Dr. Kalia has contended that the Ministry of External Affairs and Ministry of Home Affairs should approach the international human rights organizations to expose the torture that resulted in Captain Kalia's death, as well as 4 other sepoys of the 4 Jat regiment. Here's what N.K. Kalia said to Headlines Today.
I have been approaching them through various means. But there was hardly any concrete output. Not only for Capt.Saurabh Kalia and the 5 soldiers, this is a reality of our all men in forces. Pakistan has been violating the Geneva Convention, all other things, indulging in all other things. But the government of India has hardly taken any action so far. No, in case where such incident happens with armed people, armed forces, it is unfortunate and sad. Well, I feel personally to sacrifice the father nation, every soldier will want to, but that happened to Capt.Saurabh Kalia and his 5 soldiers. No parents, no army, no nation can do that. This is my last hope. The Supreme Court has a very good image among the masses in the entire nation. And I personally feel that it would take a stop on the situation in the right manner and ask or pressurize the government to act.
Well, between 1999 and now, N.K. Kalia has approached several different defense ministers, several different home ministers, different ministers of external affairs, at least 2 prime ministers, agencies, national security advisors, but N.K. Kalia has been let down at every level by Indian authorities. Neither the External Affairs Ministry, nor the Home Ministry, nor the Defense Ministry has taken up Saurabh Kalia's case despite several representation by his father. Never has India put any pressure on Pakistan to act against its soldiers who inflicted unspeakable brutalities on the Indian officer and 4 sepoys who were with him when they were captured. Captain Kalia was held captive and subjected to brutal torture by Pakistan Rangers in May 1999. It was his first posting in the Kargil sector on the 15th of May 1999 after continuous crossfire with Pakistan armed forces across the line of control, Captain Kalia and his troops ran out of ammunition. He was captured along with 5 soldiers of his patrolling team and held as a prisoner of war in Pakistan. He and his soldiers were tortured in captivity for 22 days, and their badly mutilated bodies, literally in pieces, were later handed over to India.
India betrays a martyr's sacrifice. A shattered father moves the court. India soft on Pakistan, but tough on Kargil hero. The ultimate betrayal. Continuing coverage only on Headlines Today.
Well, like I said, we're opening up our phone lines here on Headlines Today. Over the next 25 minutes, we want to know what you, the viewer, thinks. Major General Afzal Karim, well-known defense analyst and military affairs specialist, is with us in the studio. He will be giving us his views on this extremely distressing issue that we're campaigning here on Headlines Today over the next 25 minutes. But there's some news just in. Let me just tell our viewers, Salman Khurshid, the Minister of External Affairs, has responded to Headlines Today's campaign since this morning. He has spoken out about the Capt.Saurabh Kalia case. He has said it is extremely distressing, inhuman. He has said that violations of the Geneva Conventions and war crimes of this kind are unacceptable. We have taken up the matter at the highest level over the years, haven't got a sense of the issue being addressed. We have a wish list of many important things. We haven't succeeded in many areas. A tone of helplessness being sounded by the country's senior-most Minister for Foreign Affairs. Our distress and concern have been conveyed, cannot commit anything. Maha Siddiqui was there. She put questions to Salman Khurshid. She joins me on the phone line. Maha, utter helplessness, it appears, by the foreign minister over an issue that they say they've been trying to get a hold of for at least 13 years now.
Well, absolutely, because even here when this question was posed to him, he has not committed on anything, just saying that they are deeply distressed by this incident, and even at times of war there are certain codes and ethics that one has to adhere to. As far as Captain Kalia's father's plea is concerned, where he has asked the Ministry of External Affairs and Ministry of Home Affairs to take up this matter at the highest level with the International Court of Justice, so that it is revealed that the kind of torture that his son had gone through. To that, the Ministry of External Affairs only and the sources tell us that this matter, the reply to this plea will be made by the Ministry of Defense. So clearly, it is almost like passing the buck at this point.
Thanks, Maha, for getting us those details. Well, clearly the government has been forced by Headlines Today into reacting to this story, taking it up, even though they're not saying very much, nothing very meaningful. I'm going to go to General Karim in just a moment, but we've already got our first caller. Arun is calling from Delhi. Arun, what's on your mind as far as this issue is concerned?
So can I go ahead?
Please go ahead and tell us what you want to say.
Yeah, so first of all, I would appreciate Headlines Today for taking up this issue in a very serious way. And it is very painful for a country like India that still we are letting down our real heroes, Kargil heroes.
Yes.
And actually his father is battling for the last 13 years. And I have also gone through the External Affairs Ministry versions. That is very, very painful, you can say like this, because this is our real hero. And why we are afraid of taking up the issue with Pakistan? And why we are not taking up the issue in the International Court of Justice? What we are afraid of? Actually, no doubt, we need to promote the ties with Pakistan. But why we are not doing like this? We need to promote, but not at the cost of this type of thing. It is very painful for a country like India. So Indian government should not deny justice anymore, and they need to provide the justice to the father who has been fighting for 14 years.
Well, we share your emotions, Arun. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. Why hasn't India taken up this case with the International Court of Justice? We're getting a call from Mississippi in the United States. Akash, a Headlines Today viewer, is calling in from there. Akash, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, my heart goes out to the mother and father of Saurabh Kalia. This is highly deplorable act, and no mother and father should go through such an incident. They fight for us, they have stood with us, they defend us, so we should do all we can. And I would propose that we should have a day where we can, raise such issues, where the incidents like this,
yes,
where Saurabh Kalia and what's been done to him.
Well, there are enough fora for such issues. actually be taken up on. I want to bring in, thanks Akash for calling in, phone calls still coming in from our viewers. I want to get in a word from General Afzal Karim. General Karim, what goes through your mind when you see something like this? I mean, everyone knows the story of Capt.Saurabh Kalia and those 4 other ranks who were captured that fateful day, in May 1999. 13 years his father has been fighting this battle, literally physically going and knocking the doors of the powers that be. Nothing has happened. I mean, you've heard the emotion in the people's voices when they speak. India hasn't even taken it up with an international court of justice. What are your thoughts?
You see, as a soldier, you can only feel very sad. Not only me, but all soldiers.
That's right, yeah.
All the army and other people. Unfortunately, in our country, a soldier has never been respected. He is sacrificed and is forgotten. Same story is repeated again and again. And for every war, there is not only this story. There are other stories similar.
True. Captain Kalia has only become a face for what is a much larger mass.
Now, he was tortured in 99. There are 2 governments and so many ministers and everything changed. But nothing happened. In fact, people have totally forgotten about him. If his father had not gone to the court, he would have been forgotten, indifferent. So, the question is, brave words are spoken, some sympathetic words are spoken, but nothing happened.
Yeah.
So this is a test case. Let us see what we can do now. Because 13 years have passed, you may not be able to catch those culprits because they might be dead or gone or whatever it is, and Pakistan are going to show them up. But we can bring to the international community such behavior of soldiers, highlight it and bring it all over.
Yeah.
Because we want to really not only do it as far as Pakistan's concerned, it's a human problem.
Yes.
And in many places it is repeated.
That is really necessary to highlight these crimes that Pakistan, the cowards in Pakistan have committed against soldiers in the name of war. Well, getting a huge number of calls, huge volume of calls on this very emotive issue. Selvam from Bangalore is on the phone line with us. Selvam, go ahead. What do you want to say on this issue? Do you have a question? Can you hear me, Selvam? Go ahead.
Well, I would like to make a point here, and how long this country is going to disown their own citizens and soldiers. And such a irresponsible response that we are getting, even I noticed in Mumbai terror attack victims case, you are not taking care of them, and here this gentleman having lost his own son, and so many years of humiliation. In addition to that, the government is also adding, and it's the height. Irresponsible government that is ruling us. I'm sorry to make this statement, generalized statement, but these people should wake up, otherwise they will be shown a door very soon.
General Karim, how deep is this rot? I mean, for years, you've served for decades in the armed forces. How bad is this, complete indifference that the establishment has towards the life of a soldier?
It is worse than we can imagine. It's terrible. I don't know why. Because the people who die, after all, their families also, some civilians.
Yeah.
And some officers also, and officials. But somehow or the other, traditionally we just don't care. We think it is just one of those things that happened and the person is gone. For a few days you remember him, sometimes regiments remember him, but the country forgets them.
Well, Saurabh Kalia was killed in the most diabolic manner by Pakistani Rangers in May 1999, and in every sense he lives on. His memory only lives on in the fight that his father is fighting. So we have to support this cause, and we will do that here on Headlines Today. Here's what his father, N.K. Kalia, said to Headlines Today today.
I have been approaching them through various means, but there were hardly any concrete output. Not only for Capt.Saurabh Kalia and the 5 soldiers, this is a dignity of our all men in forces. Pakistan has been violating the Geneva Convention and all other things, indulging in all other things. But the government of India has hardly taken any action so far. So, in case where such incident happens, armed
Okay, we're getting more callers. Surjit Singh is on the line with me from Bangalore. Surjit, go ahead. What's on your mind?
Please, Shivaroon. Now, as far as this now going Kalia's parents going to Supreme Court, I think they're just totally fed up with the systems of the governance today.
Yes.
A soldier is remembered only during the danger and the God both, and once danger is over, then soldier is forgotten and the God also is forgotten. Now this is what has happened with our soldiers. The Pakistanis, they were soldier Pakistanis, military, not the rangers which you are saying, actually did all the horrendous, treatment given to our officer Kalia. And we have been presenting the petitions to the government. These 12 years have passed, nothing has happened. We stand solidly behind Kalia family and our soldier friend who has been mercilessly treated. It is right time the nation takes up the issues with the international court to make sure that such things are not done in war with the people who are fighting for each other.
Well, let's just tell our viewers that the gentleman who's speaking on the phone line right now is Major General Satbir Singh. He is he heads the Indian ex-serviceman movement, and you heard what he said. Even the ex-serviceman community has taken up this issue in such a big way, so meaningfully with successive governments. The NDA, the UPA, 2 terms of the UPA, several different national security advisors, defense ministers, home ministers, foreign ministers, but nothing has happened. Here's what a former foreign minister, former defense minister, Jaswant Singh of the BJP had to say today after Headlines Today campaigned the story.
As a soldier, as a former soldier, I found it was not as if soldiers had been violated. I felt it was my own body that had been violated because I myself had served in the army. I had done whatever I could, both as External Affairs and as Minister of Defense, because I took it very seriously.
All right, that was Jaswant Singh, former minister in the NDA government. Surjit Singh, viewer from Bangalore, is on the phone line with us. Surjit, go ahead. Surjit, are you with us? Okay, we don't have Surjit on the phone line with us. General Karim, what can the government do right now? I mean, you're absolutely right when you say, the media takes up these issues momentarily, and when the story is not being covered, people forget about these soldiers. They're in the limelight ever so briefly and temporarily. While we're on the subject, while the nation's attention is fixed on Capt.Saurabh Kalia, what can the government do, specific?
You see, the government, first thing it should do is not forget it after the media coverage and all that. They have to take up the case in the international community. They have to highlight it in various places. We have so many, we want to really show that what is wrong with such things, not only with what those people might have done, rangers or wild characters, but it's a major issue in the international community. Should learn about it and know about it. I think best thing would be to continue to press forward and focus it. And whether you get anything out of it, not that will be sufficient to bring this thing into the world community.
Well, the good news is, apart from the media attention to this story, there is meaningful work happening behind the scenes, behind all the media glare. Rajeev Chandrasekhar, for example, a Rajya Sabha member of parliament, has been writing incessant series of letters to the government, to the External Affairs Ministry, to the Home Ministry, Defense Ministry, demanding action. We've gained exclusive access to a couple of his letters. I have those letters with me. Here's what those letters actually say. Headlines Today has more evidence of the shocking betrayal meted out to Kargil hero Capt.Saurabh Kalia and his father by the Indian government. The External Affairs Ministry chose to hand out a shockingly casual response. We've got an exclusive copy here, ignoring the martyr's father's 13-year-long battle to get some measure of justice for his dead son. We're putting out a series of letters, I've got them in my hand right now, that we've accessed in this case. Letters written by Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament Rajeev Chandrasekhar, who took up Captain Kalia's case for the External Affairs Ministry. In his letter to then External Affairs Minister S.M. Krishna last month, the MP had asked the Indian government to forcefully take up the case with Islamabad. The MP had highlighted the inhuman torture by Pakistani troops and had demanded that necessary action be taken to declare this a war crime and actually up the ante against Pakistan. And this is the response that the then External Affairs Minister had actually given to Rajeev Chandrasekhar. Casual, weak, totally shocking. Read it for yourself. In his letter, the minister had lamented the lack of a response despite the ministry's quote-unquote best efforts. That's what they call best efforts over a 13-year period. Well, the Rajya Sabha MP had been stunned by the MEA's casual approach. 13 years after the brutal tragedy, it was clear from SM Krishna's letter that the government hadn't initiated any meaningful action. The MP had even gone on to say that seeking justice for Captain Kalia mustn't be seen as an act against Pakistan. Well, when you start reading letters like the one SM Krishna wrote, you really start wondering about India's aspirations to be a regional or even a global power. Next caller on the phone line with us, Bathal from Bellary in Karnataka is with us. Bathal, go ahead. What's on your mind?
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, what I understand for the last 20 years after watching the events between India and Pakistan, Pakistan is a nation which is in a psychological mess. Point number one. Now, people say that we need to engage with Pakistan. If the people, the country, which is in a denial mode,
yes,
it doesn't know that it is in psychological mess, you cannot take the risk of engaging with such a country or such people. India, instead of concentrating on building the relationship, has to concentrate on building its borders. Thinking.
Well, there will be no argument with you on those points, Bathal. Thanks for calling and speaking to Headlines today. I can tell you that several people have been trying to call. I apologize if you haven't been able to get in. This is an emotive issue. Hundreds of people across the country, across the world have been calling our numbers, trying to get their voice across. But I can promise you that through this week, we will be staying with this story and telling you much more about what's happening. Thank you to all our callers. We will not waver from keeping the focus on a story of this kind. Major General Afzal Karim, thank you very much for joining us and giving us a soldier and an officer's perspective on how bad things really are and how they can get just a little bit better. Well, that's it on this show. Thanks again to our callers for calling in. 6:30 p.m. coming up. Considerations by letting 15 terrorists off the hook. 7 p.m. on Sports Quarter. Don't miss this. Reputation over nation. Dhoni bulldozes the BCCI and has let India down. Stay tuned to Headlines today. Lots more coming up.